Today, I wanted to discuss a prominent issue within the video game industry: censorship. Let me clarify that just because I'm criticizing how certain countries handle censorship, it doesn't mean I'm attacking a country as a whole. I'm only criticizing the government, not the regular people living in those countries. Without out of the way, let's get this started. First things first, it's important to talk about the origins of the ESRB rating system, as it's intertwined with censorship, before giving actual examples. Back in the prehistoric ages of the 90s, ratings for games didn't exist. Until 1994, that is. Because the internet wasn't nearly as prevalent as it is currently, people didn't really have a way of knowing whether or not a game was appropriate for kids. Everything changed when games like Mortal Kombat, Doom, and Night Trap released. Franchises known for their extreme levels of violence. Well, not so much Night Trap, since it relies more on scaring the shit out of players, and less on the severing of limbs or rearrangement of body parts. It's not like the government could pull those games off the shelves and retrieve every copy from those who bought the games. And I'm sure the complaints from a lot of angry parents only increase the likelihood of its conception. My son, Timmy, he just played this really violent game, right? Where he ripped some guy's head off with the spine attached and then beat the other guy, the headless guy's corpse with the spine head mace thing. And it was awful. Timmy is so traumatized. Meanwhile, Timmy is just in the corner with the biggest grin on his face, and he probably said something between the lines of, "Holy fuck, that was awesome. I want to do it again." That's when the video game industry, namely the Entertainment Software Association, decided, yeah, we should probably do something about that. Thus, the ESRB rating system was born in 1994. That way, gamers or their parents would know whether or not a game was violent by simply looking at the rating. Logic dictates there was no need to censor these games if people were warned in advance about their rating. Or so you'd think. Though, that seems to do fuck all, since kids still play violent games regardless. Admittedly, my older brother and I did that back then as well. To be fair, back in my day, we were sneaky when playing violent games. Otherwise, we'd be in for a smack bottom. Courtesy of our parents. In the case of my parents, it wasn't their fault that my brother and I were rebellious little shits. People who grew up in the 80s or 90s paved the way for kids nowadays who play violent games without issue. You're welcome. I think it's only fair that games do have ratings. What I don't understand is the placement of certain censorship in specific games. Let me explain what I consider acceptable versus unacceptable forms of censorship. Now, I'm not entirely against censorship, provided it's done appropriately. For example, if you're censoring real-life political themes in a fictional setting, I don't care what side of the political spectrum you fall under. Keep your beliefs separated from the games you make. Most people who play games don't want to hear or see your political beliefs. We just want to get engrossed within the game itself. The whole point of playing games is escapism. Can't do that if political shit is in the games that we play as well. Censoring clothing on an underage character is another justified example, such as in the Final Fantasy VII remake when 15-year-old Tifa's outfit was covered by a black undershirt in order to hide her cleavage, and Yuffie's unbuttoned shorts are now buttoned and fitted with a belt. Seeing how they're kids and I'm not Herbert from Family Guy, it doesn't bother me. However, when they start censoring shit on adult characters, that's when I'm gonna have a Category 5 kaiju-sized problem. They censored adult Tifa's clothing by adding a black sports bra and leggings. Contrary to her appearance in the remakes, her original design showed off more skin by not including the leggings or sports bra. Some people complain about the original design being too sexual. She's an adult. It shouldn't matter if she's being sexualized. Being sexualized isn't always a bad thing. In this case, it is complimentary. Getting offended over a fictional adult character being sexualized is the peak amount petty. Besides, it's not like Tifa's sexual appeal is her only redeeming quality. Her being a kick-ass, soft-spoken fighter with a heart of gold is what people like most about her. I mean, she is hot too, but, the personality is the most important part. Naturally, when people make such alterations to a character's appearance, who has been depicted as a certain way for decades, then fans will be rightfully upset about it. Why is it okay to show off Tifa's bare legs and cleavage in that blue dress? Or when she's on the beach? But having her classic outfit is out of the question. Make it make sense, idiots. At least some modders on PC made it an option to equip Tifa with her classic outfit. All the more reason why I should get a gaming PC in the future. An even worse example of censorship is when they place purple light over Trish's butt crack on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 versions of Devil May Cry 5 in North America. Sometimes you just gotta laugh at it because it's so unbelievably stupid. Apparently showing off crackage in an M for Mature title revolved around coarse language and turning demons into dog treats is a step too far. Censoring T for teen games is more understandable, seeing how there's only so much nudity you can show off. But an M for Mature title, as in for adults. Come on. Companies out here trying to parent grown-ass adults who aren't even their own kids is one of the dumbest fucking things that I've ever seen. We didn't ask you to do it, nor do we want you to.
Stop it!
These companies are acting as if we have never seen this kind of shit before. Or seeing it will somehow turn us into stone. If that were true, then we'd already be stone. A lot of people who play these kinds of games have already seen naked people through either the hub or while getting freaky deaky under the sheety. Nothing I know about on the account of being the founder of the Forever Alone Club. The moment censorship is brought into an M for Mature title, it jeopardizes the original vision the developers had. You mean to tell me that not seeing Trish's butt crack jeopardized the game's quality? Yeah. What kind of idiot looks at a digital butt crack then gets offended? Believe it or not, we do all have ass cracks. Should video game characters be like mannequins, where they lack detail instead? Besides, this isn't just about ass cracks being censored. It's about the grand scheme of things. That being, an M for Mature title shouldn't be censored in any way, shape, or form. Stellar Blade is another example. It had graffiti that was altered in a subsequent patch after being deemed racist. Normal people wouldn't look at this and think it's racist, because it wasn't. Shift Up clearly didn't intend for it to be racist. It says a lot more about the people who complained about this so-called racist graffiti than it does about the same people who wouldn't think twice about it. The fact that developers can now censor games through patches is pretty fucked up when you think about it. They're altering a game that you bought without your permission. Yes, you can still play the original version without the internet, but updates include New Game Plus, Boss Rush mode, and a bunch of new costumes. So, you're put in a tough spot. They, at one point, censored clothing on Eve and Stellar Blade, though this has since then been remedied when developers released new outfits and subsequent updates. Why are you censoring clothes on an adult woman in an M for Mature title? This shouldn't have been an issue in the first place. The creator said it was a design choice to alter Eve's outfit, which genuinely sounds like a big fat load of bullshit. Don't get me wrong, the game's still very good. He has a lot to be proud of, but you don't have to lie to players. Just be honest about why you censored certain outfits on Eve. I'm convinced censorship is done by a bunch of Karens or Kyles who don't even play games and solely do it out of spite. I bet you wouldn't feel the same way if it was a male character that was being sexualized instead. Actually, I would. Nice try though. Even if looking at muscular half-naked men isn't my cup of tea. There are gamers out there who are straight women or gay men that like staring at good-looking male characters, such as Leon Kennedy, Cloud Strife, or Clive Rossfield. And there's nothing wrong with that. I do the same thing, except with attractive female characters, obviously. Very important distinction. It's only fair that if a female character's original design was more sexual, then so too should a male character's design. The last example of specific moments in games which are censored that I wanted to talk about is the Ocarina of Time 3DS port. Nintendo made Ganons Blood green instead of red. Oh yes, because bleeding green totally negates the fact that Ganon is getting non-consensually penetrated by a sword. They also censored blood within the well in Kakariko Village. Nintendo should have made the game T for teen if they were so worried about censoring blood. It's violent either way. You might as well keep the red blood in. Censorship doesn't just affect North America. It also affects other countries as well. Take China, for example. Games were banned entirely in the mainland of China until 2014. Blood within games is either limited or banned in China, regardless of color. This is absolutely ridiculous. What happens when someone in China trips and scrapes their knee? Will the government put white dye on the blood dripping from the wound? This is a very dystopian way of thinking. Then, there's Australia. Some violent games did come to Australia, albeit they were censored versions of the original. Banning games in a country for being too violent when you ironically live in a place where everything tries to kill you on a daily basis is peak level irony. And here I thought North America had it bad with censorship. By your logic, developers shouldn't tackle darker subjects and M for mature titles ever again. No normal person is condoning that shit in real life, no matter how violent the game in question is. Developers shouldn't have to worry about their original envision for the game being tampered with if we're talking about an M for mature title. Some games in Australia that were originally banned have, however, made a comeback as the ban against them has been retracted. Oh, that's just fucking lovely. Now, bring all the other titles back so Australian gamers can enjoy them just like people in North America have. The Middle East is known for banning anything related to homosexuality in games. Personally, I don't have a problem with gay characters existing in a game, as long as it's done in a way that isn't associated with real-life politics, like I said earlier, such as Dion from Final Fantasy XVI, who is a very well-executed gay character. Here's some ridiculous arguments for censorship or banning games. It's to protect the children. The target audience for mature-rated games isn't kids. It's grown-ass adults. How many kids do you know play Devil May Cry 5? Yeah, exactly. They're too busy playing other games they shouldn't be playing, like Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto 5. ESRB ratings exist nowadays specifically to tell people whether or not a game is appropriate for chillins. By default, you should know to avoid games like Devil May Cry. And you sure as shit shouldn't be censoring or banning games entirely in a country. Yes, I'm aware the same goes for my brother and I when we were younger. In hindsight, we shouldn't have been playing games like Grand Theft Auto. If you're wondering how we played Grand Theft Auto in the first place, it was on my biological father's, aka the sperm donor's PC, who, unlike my mom and dad, gave no fucks about whether or not we played violent games. I mean, we were sneaky about it around him too. Knowing him though, he wouldn't have cared either way. The problem isn't the games themselves. The problem, in a lot of situations, is the stupid-ass parents who are willingly buying their kids games that they shouldn't be playing in the first place, then have the nerve to complain about the game being too violent for their kid. Some parents are deathly allergic to accountability. That's not always the case, Jesse. The kids could get the games on their own. They can get the violent game either by borrowing it from a friend or buying it without their parents' knowledge, using money they saved up from allowances, birthdays, or completing newspaper routes. Actually, I think delivering newspapers is redundant nowadays. Anyways, I do agree to a certain extent. However, you also have to ask yourself, how many 12-year-olds out there have jobs? How else do you think they're getting their hands on these violent games in the first place? Kids aren't typically like Macaulay Culkin. They don't have a shitload of their own money. No matter how these kids are getting their hands on violent games, it's not the government's job to parent someone else's kid. That's on the parents. For any kid who plays violent games, it's not the act of playing the game itself that makes them feel the most satisfaction. Rather, the exhilaration they feel from doing something they know they shouldn't be. I speak from personal experience. Again, I know my brother and I shouldn't have been doing it. Naughty, naughty, naughty. If parents are so worried about whether or not their kids are playing violent games, then they need to be extra observant of their kids' behavior. If you try your best to shield your kids from violent games and they end up playing violent games anyway, then at least those parents gave it their all. My parents included, as I implied beforehand at the beginning of the video. I have nothing against those kinds of parents. It's not their fault. In contrast, there are many parents out there who don't even try. That's the real issue. They don't supervise their kids. They're not observant enough. They just plant their kid in front of a TV and expect the TV to babysit them. And then the parents go off and do their own thing. With those kinds of parents, it is absolutely, positively, unequivocally their fault. A nationwide telephone survey was conducted involving 500 parents. 37% of parents sometimes allow their kids to play M-rated games, while 8% said they generally allow their kids to play M-rated games. That's a total of 45%. Parents with kids under the age of 13 are twice as likely to never allow their children to play an M for Mature game. Even at 13 years old, I think you're still too young to play M for Mature titles. Think about it. Your kid is barely a teenager at that point. They have many years of growing up to do before they become young adults. I did ask for my brother's input on whether or not a 13-year-old should be playing M for Mature titles, and he did say no while making a very valid point. His reasoning is, and I quote, because it gives them a sense of entitlement. They know they shouldn't be playing it because of the rating and they're allowed to, then they become self-entitled. Look at all the little pricks on Call of Duty. If you give kids an inch, then they'll take a mile. If anyone thinks my brother was being too harsh, try partaking in an online session of Call of Duty, then we'll talk. Your faith in humanity, if it hasn't already, will dwindle to a faint twinkle. What about you and your brother? You played violent games. Wouldn't that make you self-entitled as well? We grew up in a time where online gaming wasn't prevalent. And by the way, I'm not giving off the impression that the rules don't apply to me. Of course they do. I'm just saying kids during the time I was growing up in were much less likely to be self-entitled brats, as they were more likely raised by parents who cared more about what kind of content they were exposed to at a young age, as opposed to nowadays where a lot of parents, not all parents, obviously don't care. Moving on. Despite the twice as likely thing being taken into consideration, I'm betting at least a couple dozen of those 500 parents are willingly buying their under 13-year-old children M for Mature titles while already knowing what kind of game it is. The simple answer is for parents to not buy violent games for their small kids. As for the parents who didn't know about their kids playing violent games beforehand, then complained about it, I still don't think the solution is for the government to ban the game. By banning the game, it prevents any adult who has an interest in playing it in the places I mentioned previously. That's incredibly selfish. It really is amazing what kind of damage the obnoxiously loud minority of parents can cause. Whether parents try or not, eventually, kids will learn about a particular violent game. It's all a matter of when, where, and who. All you can really do is your best to shield your kids from violent content for as long as you can until they're old enough. Here's the second argument for censorship. It leads to real-life violence. Yeah, fuck accountability. Am I right? Let's blame a work of fiction for someone's real-life actions. This may come as a surprise to some people, but games don't have mindfuckery powers. If they did, then wouldn't everyone who plays them be transformed into a heartless killer? The truth is, these young people who play games and commit acts of violence in real life didn't do it because a game made them do it. They did it on the account of most likely coming from a very broken home where they were abused by either one or both of their parents. In other words, little Johnny was cracked long before he played violent games. He just needed the excuse. Most people who play violent games are goddamn teddy bears in real life. Take me, for example. I have played violent games for as long as I can remember, and I never had or will go on some Trevor Phillips-style rampage since I know that it's immoral, as does almost everyone else who plays violent games. And there's also the fact that I can't fight. I'm a wimp, okay? I got like wet noodles for arms. So yeah, I couldn't be a criminal even if my life depended on it. Most gamers have a little something called self-control. As in, we're choosing not to do terrible things. Finally, there's the last argument for censorship. Gaming makes someone lazy, and people play them too much. Much like we're choosing not to do terrible things in real life, gamers are also choosing to play games for as long as we want, or be as active as we want. Most gamers know when they should take a break. This next part will blow some of your minds. A lot of gamers also have lives outside of gaming. That is a shocking revelation, to be sure. If I'm given a choice between playing games or going to the beach with my family, then I will choose being at the beach with my family over playing games the entire day. I'm not saying gamers should play for 50 hours straight and neglect their families. No, don't do that. What I'm trying to say is, as long as you're still present in your family's lives, then a couple hours of gaming in between is not going to hurt anyone. All this talk about the negative effects games have on people when no one talks about the positives. Allow me. Problem solving, social skills, teamwork, memory, decision making, and relieves stress, assuming you're not playing a Souls game. Then all you want to do is headbutt your television. A lot of people have also made a shitload of money by either playing, reviewing, or making games. Excluding myself, of course, since I'm still currently a broke-ass bitch. Overall, censorship should be done sparingly. Stop unnecessarily censoring shit. Headache! That'll do it for this video. Let me know in the comments below what your worst example of censorship from a game you personally played is. So yeah, from here on out, I'm gonna start posting videos more regularly, and stop being such a lazy shite, either every week or every other week. Ta-ta for now. Ha-ha! Bitch!